Rain drummed against the windows of the private boardroom like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. The room was nothing like the sterile corporate spaces most people imagined when they thought of Manhattan power. This place belonged to a different world. Dark wood paneling lined the walls, absorbing what little light the amber-toned fixtures provided. The air carried the scent of leather, old cigars, and something else. Authority, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Lily Hartman sat across a massive mahogany table, her pale face reflected in its polished surface. Behind her, the Manhattan skyline blurred through rain-streaked glass, the city washing itself clean while her life fell apart. She was 7 months pregnant, her belly round and heavy beneath the silk of her navy dress. Her hands trembled as they rested on the table, fingers laced together to hide the shaking. Across from her sat Dante Caruso, 42 years old with dark hair touched silver at the temples, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. A gold ring on his right hand caught the dim light, the design intricate and clearly old. Family heirloom, perhaps. Everything about him spoke of controlled power. The way he sat, perfectly still. The way his dark eyes assessed without emotion. The way he tapped a Mont Blanc pen against the divorce papers with metronomic precision, each click a small cruelty. His lawyer sat beside him, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a smirk that suggested he enjoyed his work far too much. And next to the lawyer, adjusting her lipstick using her iPhone screen, sat Julia, the PR executive, the woman everyone whispered about, the mistress who had stolen Lily's husband without even trying. Her perfume, something expensive and cloying, made Lily's throat burn. The room felt smaller with each passing second. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the rain and that damn pen tapping against paper. "Sign it, Lily," Dante said finally, his voice low and measured. Not loud, but absolute. The kind of voice that had given orders for years and never been questioned. "End this." Lily's hands shook as she reached for the pen he slid across the table. The metal was cold against her fingers. She stared down at her name printed in black ink at the bottom of the page. Lily Hartman Caruso. The name she had believed would last forever. The name that had meant safety, partnership, love. Now it was just letters on a page waiting to be crossed out. She tried to breathe, but her lungs felt compressed. The baby kicked, hard, as if sensing her distress. As if the child already knew what was happening. Dante leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly beneath his weight. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes. Not quite satisfaction, but close. Triumph, maybe. Or simply indifference. "Don't pretend this baby changes anything," he said, each word deliberate and cutting. "For all I know, it might not even be mine." The room went silent. Even the rain seemed to pause. The words hung in the air like smoke, poisonous and choking. The lawyer coughed, trying and failing to hide a smirk. Julia glanced up from her phone, her expression flickering between amusement and discomfort. Lily blinked back tears, her vision blurring. She felt the baby kick again, harder this time, as if trying to fight back on her behalf. Her chest tightened with shame and rage and grief all at once. She signed. Each stroke of the pen felt like she was burying her old life. Each letter a small death. When she finished, her hand was shaking so badly she could barely set the pen down. Dante pulled the papers to his side without a word. He glanced at Julia and whispered something that made her giggle. A soft, intimate sound that twisted like a knife in Lily's stomach. Lily rose from the chair slowly, one hand pressed against her belly for support. Her legs felt unsteady beneath her. The room tilted slightly, the amber light swimming in her vision. She looked at Dante one last time. His face was impassive, already distant. She was nothing to him now, a problem solved, a loose end tied up. "You'll regret this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. Dante's smirk deepened. "I doubt that." He turned away, dismissing her without another word. Julia reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his, and they both stood to leave through a side door. The lawyer gathered the papers, sliding them into a leather briefcase with practiced efficiency. Lily stood alone in that dark, heavy room for a moment longer. The rain hammered against the windows. The city beyond glowed with 1,000 lights, indifferent to her pain. Then she turned and walked out. Outside the building, the rain was merciless. It poured in cold sheets, drenching her within seconds. Paparazzi materialized from nowhere, cameras flashing like lightning, shouting her name, demanding statements. Lily, how does it feel to be divorced? Is the baby really his? Did you know about the affair? She tried to shield her face with her hands, but there was nowhere to hide. The flashes were blinding, the voices cruel. She stumbled down the steps, her heels slipping on the wet stone, and nearly fell. A hand reached out to steady her, but it was only a reporter pushing closer for a better shot. Lily broke free and stumbled toward the street, searching desperately for her car. But as she reached for her phone to call her driver, it buzzed with a notification. Your account has been suspended. Her breath caught. Dante had frozen her finances. Every account, every credit card, everything. He had warned her he would, but she hadn't believed he'd actually do it. Not like this, not immediately. She stood on the sidewalk, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears and ruined mascara. Yellow cabs rushed past, their headlights blurring into streaks of gold. Umbrellas bobbed like black flowers in a river of gray. The city felt enormous, heartless, indifferent. She pressed her palm to her stomach and whispered, "It's just us now." Lightning cracked above the skyline, illuminating the towers in sharp relief. Suddenly, a woman rushed toward her through the rain. Naomi Brooks, her old friend and lawyer, appeared like a lifeline in the storm. "Lily, don't faint," Naomi shouted, grabbing her arm and steadying her. "Someone's been trying to reach you all morning." "Who?" Lily asked weakly, her voice barely carrying over the rain. Naomi pulled a soaked envelope from her purse, holding it carefully. "A man named Gus Hale. He says he's the executor of your mother's estate. He needs to meet you today, before midnight." Lily blinked, disoriented. My mother's estate? She had nothing left when she died. Naomi's eyes were wide, urgent. "He said it's about a will, and a trust, in your name." Rain poured harder, drowning out the noise of the city. Lily stared at the envelope trembling in her hand, water running off its edges. For the first time that day, a flicker of something, hope perhaps, pierced through the storm of her grief. But as a black Mercedes with tinted windows pulled up to the curb nearby, a man inside lifted a camera and snapped a photo of her. Then he made a call, his voice lost in the rain. She signed it. Proceed to phase 2. The next morning, Manhattan looked like it had washed itself clean. Sunlight spilled over Fifth Avenue, glinting off Tiffany windows and glass towers, turning puddles into mirrors of gold. The storm had passed, leaving the city bright and sharp and unforgiving. But Lily Hartman sat in Naomi's small law office downtown, her eyes swollen from crying, her hands clutching that damp envelope like it was the last lifeline she had left in the world. The office was modest, tucked into an older building with creaking floors and radiators that clanged in the winter. Naomi's desk was covered in legal briefs and coffee-stained notepads, but she had cleared a space for 2 Starbucks cups in the envelope that now sat between them like a mystery neither woman fully understood. "Drink this," Naomi said, sliding a latte toward Lily. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Lily tried to smile, but it came out broken. "I haven't. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face when I sign those papers. The way he looked at me like I was a nothing." Naomi sighed, her jaw tightening. "Dante's a bastard. But if this Gus Hale guy is who he says he is, you might finally have something he can't take away." "Maybe," Lily whispered, staring at the envelope. With shaking fingers, she tore it open. Inside was a single letter, embossed with gold initials at the top. H.H. Hartman Holdings, Trust Confidential. Her heart raced as she unfolded the heavy paper and began to read. "Miss Hartman, as executor of your late mother's estate, I must inform you that the inheritance conditions attached to the Hartman Family Trust will activate on your 30th birthday. However, early release may be granted under specific circumstances, one of which has just occurred, the dissolution of a dependent marriage. You are the sole surviving heir to assets valued in excess of $50 million, including controlling shares in Hartman Holdings, several Fifth Avenue properties, and long-term investment portfolios. However, the trust can only transfer if you prove financial and emotional capability for independent life. This means no spousal dependency, no shared assets, and no psychological instability that could endanger future heirs. I urge you to contact me immediately. Time is of the essence. Sincerely, Augustus Hale, Esquimau. The letter trembled in Lily's hands. Her vision blurred as she read the words again, trying to make sense of them. Naomi, she whispered, this says $50 million. Naomi's eyes widened as she leaned closer, reading over Lily's shoulder. Holy hell, Lily, this is real. Your mother was part of the Hartman Trust. That's old Manhattan money, real estate, legacy wealth. But she died when I was 15, Lily said, her voice cracking. I thought she had nothing left. We lived so modestly. She hid it, Naomi said quietly. Maybe to protect you. Maybe to make sure you grew up without the target that kind of wealth puts on your back. Before Lily could respond, Naomi's desk phone rang. She grabbed it quickly. Naomi Brooks Law, she answered, then frowned. Yes, she's here. Who's calling? Her expression softened. Mr. Hale, one moment. She pressed the speaker button. A deep, steady male voice filled the small office. Miss Hartman, my name is Augustus Hale. I handle the Hartman estate. You're the sole surviving heir. Lily swallowed hard. That can't be right. I don't understand. It's more than right, Gus said calmly, but listen carefully. The trust can only transfer if you prove you're financially and emotionally capable of independent life. That means no spousal dependency, no shared assets, and no psychological instability that could endanger the heirs. Naomi leaned forward. Heirs meaning her children. Correct, Gus replied. If Miss Hartman can demonstrate full guardianship and mental stability within 12 months, the trust will activate. All assets, all properties, all portfolios. Lily's pulse spiked. $50 million? In excess of, Gus confirmed. But Miss Hartman, there's something you need to know. Someone else already knows about this. I received an anonymous inquiry this morning about your eligibility. My system was breached. Naomi's jaw tightened. Dante. Lily's heart pounded. He must have seen the letter. He'll try to prove I'm unstable, that I'm not fit to be a mother. Gus's tone grew grim. Then you must stay low profile. The trust's observers are watching. If you're seen as volatile or mentally unfit, the board could freeze your claim indefinitely. A heavy silence settled over the office. Lily looked at Naomi, fear twisting in her stomach. So if I break down, cry, or even get angry in public, she said slowly, I could lose everything. Exactly, Gus said. You must show strength, composure, stability. And one more thing, you'll need a professional psychological assessment to prove your well-being. I can recommend someone discreet. Naomi scribbled notes furiously. We'll handle this. She just needs time and space. But before Gus could hang up, his tone softened. Miss Hartman, your mother believed you'd rise when everyone expected you to fall. Don't let them be right about doubting you. The line went dead. Lily stared out the window at the street below. Yellow cabs slid past Dior and Cartier displays, the world moving like nothing had changed. Yet everything had. Naomi touched her shoulder gently. We'll fight smart, Lily, but first we have to get you somewhere safe, somewhere no one can find you. Where? Lily whispered. I have a place, Naomi said. My family's apartment in the Upper West Side. It's under my mother's name. Dante won't think to look there. Lily nodded slowly, exhaustion washing over her in waves. Outside, across the street, a man in a gray coat lowered his phone camera and walked away, murmuring into his earpiece. Phase 2 confirmed. Send it to Caruso. And just like that, Lily realized she hadn't escaped. The game had only begun. By the time dusk settled over Manhattan, the city had transformed into a river of headlights and shadow. Naomi drove her black Mercedes S-Class down Park Avenue, glancing at Lily through the rain-smeared windshield. Lily sat silently in the passenger seat, one hand cradling her swollen belly, the other gripping a crumpled tissue. You need to rest, Lily, Naomi said softly. We'll go to my apartment tonight. It's safer there. Lily nodded, but her mind was miles away. She stared out the window as they passed the glowing Cartier sign, its red letters reflected on the wet glass. She remembered when Dante had brought her here for their first anniversary, had slipped a diamond bracelet onto her wrist and promised her forever. That same bracelet now sat pawned in a downtown shop, traded for cash to pay her medical bills. Her phone buzzed in her lap. A new message flashed across the screen. You think you can hide? You're not fit to raise my child. Her chest tightened. Naomi, he knows. Naomi's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Ignore it. He's trying to push you over the edge. You heard what Mr. Hale said. They're watching. You can't show weakness. I'm trying, Lily whispered, her voice breaking. But then she gasped. Pain, sharp and sudden, wiping through her abdomen. Her hand flew to her stomach. Naomi, the baby. The car lurched as Naomi slammed the brakes. Lily! Lily doubled over, her face contorting with pain. Something's wrong. My stomach. Oh, God. Naomi's instincts kicked in immediately. She pulled to the curb, hazard lights flashing, and dialed 911 with shaking hands. Pregnant woman, 30 weeks, severe pain, possible preterm labor. Park and 58th. Hurry. Rain poured harder, drowning out everything else. Within minutes, the wail of an ambulance cut through the storm. Paramedics rushed out, their voices calm but urgent as they lifted Lily onto a stretcher. Her vision blurred with pain and light. Naomi climbed into the ambulance beside her, clutching her hand. You're going to be okay, Naomi said fiercely. You hear me? You're going to be fine. As the ambulance sped through the strays, Wyron screaming, Lily whispered through gritted teeth, Naomi, if something happens to me, promise you'll protect them. Don't let him take my babies. Don't you dare talk like that, Naomi said, her voice thick with emotion. You'll be fine. All of you. Lily's phone vibrated again on the stretcher beside her. Another message. Maybe the world would be better off without you. Naomi's face drained of color. That's psychotic. He's threatening you. But before she could finish, a screech tore through the air. The ambulance jerked violently to the side as another vehicle swerved directly into its path. Metal screamed against metal. Glass shattered. Lily was thrown sideways, her body slamming against the wall of the ambulance. Naomi hit her shoulder hard, crying out in pain. The sirens died mid-wail. Smoke, glass, silence. When Lily opened her eyes, everything was upside down. She was still strapped to the stretcher, but the ambulance had tipped onto its side. The paramedic beside her groaned, unconscious. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead. Naomi's voice echoed faintly from somewhere outside. Help! Someone help us! Through the shattered door, Lily saw a man standing in the rain. He wore a black hood, his face hidden in shadow. He stood perfectly still, staring straight at her. Then he turned and disappeared into the alley. Moments later, another car skidded to a stop. A tall man in a dark wool coat jumped out, shouting orders to the EMTs arriving at the scene. Get the stretcher, he commanded, his voice calm but absolute. Move carefully. She's pregnant. Lily tried to focus through the haze of pain. The man leaned closer, his face coming into view. Gray eyes, sharp and assessing but not unkind. Dark hair, a strong jaw, expensive suit beneath the coat. You're going to be all right, he said quietly, his voice steady. I've got you. Her vision began to fade. She heard Naomi's voice from somewhere distant. That's Lorenzo Vitale, the investor. He was right behind us. He saw everything. Lorenzo's voice was the last thing she heard before losing consciousness. She's not dying tonight. But as she blacked out, one of the paramedics discovered something that made his blood run cold. The ambulance's brake line had been cleanly cut. This wasn't an accident. It was a warning. The next thing Lily felt was the blinding white light of the emergency room and the sound of her own heart monitor racing like a warning bell. The antiseptic smell burned her throat, sharp and sterile. She tried to move, but pain ripped through her abdomen, fierce and unrelenting. Someone pressed her shoulders gently back against the bed. Easy, Miss Hartman, a nurse said, her voice calm but firm. You've been in an accident. You're at New York Presbyterian Hospital. You need to stay calm for the babies. Babies. The word echoed through Lily's haze, plural and terrifying. Naomi appeared beside her, one arm in a sling, her eyes red but alive. They're trying to keep them in for a few more weeks, Lily. Just breathe. When? Lily managed to whisper. But the doctor's expression behind the surgical mask was grim. We can't wait, the doctor said. Her placenta's ruptured. Prep for emergency C-section. The room exploded into motion. Nurses wheeling trays of instruments, lights flashing overhead, a monitor beeping frantically like an alarm clock for survival. Naomi squeezed Lily's hand. "I'll be right here. You're not alone." Lily nodded weakly, her voice trembling. "If they're born this early, will they make it?" The doctor didn't answer. There was no time for reassurance. Moments later, she was rushed through double doors into the operating theater, surrounded by sterile walls and buzzing fluorescent lights. The anesthesiologist leaned over her, his voice gentle. "Deep breaths, Mrs. Caruso." "Not Caruso," she whispered, her eyes fluttering. "Hartman." A faint smile flickered beneath his mask. "Hartman, then. You're safe now." Through the haze of pain and medicine, Lily heard the doctor's voice. "First one's crowning. Ready." A tiny cry pierced the air. Weak but alive. Then another cry. Then one more. Three voices, uneven and fragile, filled the sterile room with something bigger than hope. "Triplets," one of the nurses murmured. "All breathing." Lily sobbed with relief. Tears streaming down her face. "My babies. They're alive." One of the doctors turned towards someone at the door. "We'll need NICU support immediately." That was when she saw him through her blurred vision. Lorenzo Vitale stood just inside the doorway, his tailored coat still damp from the rain, his gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity she didn't understand. "I'm not family," he told the nurse firmly, "but I'm covering all her medical costs. Make sure she has the best care this hospital can offer." The nurse hesitated. "Sir, that's—" "I said all costs," Lorenzo repeated, his tone quiet but absolute. He pulled out a sleek black card and handed it to the staff without hesitation. Then his gaze softened as he looked at Lily. "You did it," he said quietly. "You're safe now, Miss Hartman." When Lily woke again hours later, the storm outside had passed. The city glowed silver beneath the skyline, lights twinkling like distant stars. Naomi slept in the corner chair beside her bed, exhausted but peaceful. Lorenzo stood at the nursery window, looking through the glass at three tiny incubators glowing under pale blue lights. Inside, three impossibly small babies, wrapped in white blankets, their tiny chests rising and falling. Lily whispered, "They're so small." Lorenzo turned, his expression softening. "Small but strong, like their mother." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saving us." He shrugged slightly. "You'd have done the same for someone else." Then his tone grew serious. "But Lily, that ambulance, the brakes were cut. The police found clear evidence of tampering." Her breath caught. "You mean—" He nodded slowly. "Someone wanted to make sure you never made it to this hospital alive." A silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. The hum of the incubators was the only sound. Lily's hand trembled as she reached toward the glass separating her from her children. "Then whoever they are," she said softly, her voice steady despite the fear, "they just failed." But outside that same hospital, hidden in the shadows beneath a street lamp, a man in a black hood watched through the rain and whispered into his phone. "She lived. Phase 3 begins." 3 weeks after the accident, snow blanketed Manhattan like silence itself. The city had transformed from the chaos of autumn rain into something quieter, colder, more deliberate. Lily sat by the hospital window, her body still weak but healing, eyes fixed on the city lights that shimmered beyond the frosted glass. Her triplets, Ava, Jack, and Noah, slept in the neonatal ward down the hall. They were tiny but growing stronger every day. She touched the glass bracelet around her wrist that bore their names, each letter engraved with care. The door opened quietly. Naomi entered, her sling finally gone, holding a sleek folder. "You ready for this?" Naomi asked. Lily sighed. "If it's another hospital bill—" "No," Naomi said, a faint smile on her lips. "It's not. It's the meeting Mr. Hale scheduled. He's coming here today, with the board trustee." "Board trustee?" Lily frowned. "Yeah," Naomi said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Apparently the inheritance isn't as simple as cashing a check. It's tied to a corporate trust, Hartman Holdings. There are conditions, protocols, and someone has to verify you're capable of managing it." Lily's stomach tightened. "They're testing me." Always, Naomi said quietly. Before Lily could process that, the door opened again. Gus Hale stepped in, his gray hair impeccably styled, wearing a navy wool coat over a tailored suit. His posture was that of a man who had carried secrets for too long and bore them with dignity. Behind him was another man, tall, broad-shouldered, sharp suit, familiar gray eyes. Lily blinked. Lorenzo? Mr. Vitale, Gus said with a polite smile. I believe you've met. Lorenzo stepped forward, his expression calm but unreadable. Hello, Lily. What are you at? Lily started, but Gus interrupted gently. Mr. Vitale is not only the man who saved you, Gus explained. He's also one of the trustees of your mother's estate. The air went still. Lily's fingers tightened on the blanket. You're what? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lorenzo looked uncomfortable, his jaw tightening slightly. I didn't tell you because it wasn't the right time. Your mother appointed me years ago to oversee certain trust conditions. She wanted someone who understood integrity, not greed. Someone outside the family who couldn't be manipulated. Gus laid the folder on Lily's lap. Your mother, Margaret Hartman, left behind controlling shares in Hartman Holdings, several Fifth Avenue properties, and a long-term investment fund valued at approximately $50 million. Lily's breath caught. That's impossible. She lived so modestly. She hid it, Gus said softly. She wanted you to grow up humble, away from the kind of attention that wealth attracts. The inheritance only activates if you demonstrate independence and moral clarity, qualities your mother valued above everything. Lorenzo added quietly, she designed this to protect you. But Lily, there's something you need to know. Gus cleared his throat. The board has reviewed recent press coverage. They're concerned. Lily's pulse quickened. Concerned about what? Photos of you leaving the courthouse in tears, Gus said carefully. Stories about instability, emotional breakdowns. Those could jeopardize your qualification. Naomi frowned. That's unfair. She's been through trauma. It's the condition, Gus said. Public perception matters. Until you prove full stability and guardianship capability, the assets remain locked. Lily stared at the skyline beyond the window, fury mixing with grief. So the man who humiliated me publicly could now cost me my mother's legacy? Lorenzo's voice was gentle but firm. Not if you stay calm and strategic. Let him think you are broken while you rebuild quietly. Don't give him ammunition. Naomi leaned in. We'll set up a holding plan. I'll manage the paperwork under attorney protection. Lorenzo can handle trust relations. You just focus on healing and your children. Lily hesitated, then nodded slowly. Fine. But if this trust is my mother's last wish, I won't let Dante destroy it too. Gus smiled. Good, because Miss Hartman, you have more allies than you realize. Before leaving, Lorenzo handed her a small velvet box. Inside lay a delicate pendant, silver, engraved with a single word. Courage. She bought that for you before she passed, Lorenzo said quietly. I was supposed to give it to you when you were ready. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I don't feel ready for anything. You don't have to, Lorenzo replied. You just have to begin. But as they left, Gus received an encrypted email on his phone. His expression darkened as he read it. Dante Caruso had filed a court motion claiming Lily's mental instability endangered the triplets. The war had officially begun. Winter melted slowly into a soft, pale spring. 3 months after the hospital, Lily found herself standing on the porch of a cedar cottage in East Hampton, one of the smaller properties listed in her mother's trust. Waves lapped gently beyond the dunes, the air filled with the scent of salt and pine. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was silence. Real silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of peace. Inside, the cottage was nothing like her old life with Dante. No marble floors, no cold perfection. Just wooden beams, pale linen curtains, and a stone fireplace crackling softly beside 3 bassinets arranged in a careful row. Ava, Jack, and Noah slept soundly, each wearing knitted caps Naomi had ordered from Etsy. They were so small still, but stronger now. Their tiny hands curled into fists, their breathing steady. Naomi, busy unpacking groceries in the kitchen, smiled. I stocked you up. Diapers, formula, baby wipes, and decaf coffee. I know how you like it. Lily managed a smile. You shouldn't have done all this. Are you kidding? Naomi said. Watching you rise again is my favorite revenge story. They laughed softly. It felt almost normal. But as Naomi left later that afternoon, Lily noticed something that made her stomach tighten. A black SUV parked near the dunes, just visible through the window. It stayed there for nearly an hour before disappearing down the coastal road. That night, when the babies finally slept, Lily curled on the couch with a book. She tried to read, but her mind kept drifting to that SUV, to the ambulance crash, to the cut brake line. Someone was watching her. She was sure of it. Days turned into weeks. Each sunrise brought a new rhythm. Feeding schedules, burping routines, diaper changes. She recorded everything in a journal, noting every milestone. Ava's tiny laugh, Jack's stubborn kicks, Noah's quiet curiosity. Healing came in small doses, like the tide reclaiming sand. Lorenzo visited every few days, bringing supplies and advice. One afternoon, he arrived with a leather folder and a gentle smile. The trust audit went through, and he said, setting the folder on the kitchen table. You're officially cleared for independent management. Lily's eyes widened. You mean I can start making decisions? He nodded. Within limits. You can control Hartman Holdings' public projects, community initiatives, charity work. It'll prove your capability to the board. Lily hesitated. Dante won't stop, will he? Lorenzo's expression darkened. He's filing more motions, claims you're emotionally unfit, that you fabricated the inheritance to gain sympathy. She felt her chest tighten. Fabricated? How low can he go? Lower than you can imagine, Lorenzo said quietly. But you have something he'll never have again. What? Public sympathy. And the truth. That evening they stood outside watching the sunset. The sky blazed with pink and gold, reflecting in the glass of Lorenzo's parked Mercedes. He looked at her, the wind lifting her hair. You remind me of someone, he said softly. Not because you look like her, but because you refuse to break. Lily looked down, her throat thick. Your wife? He nodded. She was strong like you, faced impossible things and kept walking forward. She must have been lucky to have you, Lily said. No, Lorenzo replied quietly. I was lucky to have her. Their eyes met, lingering just long enough to feel something unspoken. Not romance yet, but recognition. Two souls scarred by loss, finding solace in shared silence. Later that night, as the house slept, Lily sat by the window with her laptop, drafting plans to reopen her mother's charity foundation. Her reflection in the glass looked calmer, wiser, reborn. But then the power flickered. Once, twice, the lights went out. She froze, heart hammering in the darkness. From outside came a faint engine hum. Through the curtain she saw headlights, the same black SUV parked by the dunes. A shadow stepped out, walking toward the house. She grabbed her phone, whispering urgently, Naomi, someone's outside. The call didn't go through, no signal, only the wind in her pounding heart. And as she reached for the nearest object, a baby monitor on the table, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. A red light blinked on the device, a light that hadn't been there before. Someone was already watching her from inside the house. The morning after the blackout, Lily woke to the faint cries of her babies and the smell of salt in the air. The power had returned sometime during the night, but the memory of that shadow outside and the blinking red light on the baby monitor hadn't left her. Every creak of the old cottage made her tense. Every gust of wind against the windows sounded like footsteps. By the time Naomi arrived with groceries, Lily's nerves were stretched to breaking. Someone was out there last night, Lily said, pacing the small living room. I saw headlights near the dunes again. The same SUV. Naomi frowned, setting the bags on the counter. I'll call local security. You're not supposed to be alone here, Lily. I can't leave now, Lily said, rocking Noah gently. If I run every time I feel afraid, Dante wins. Before Naomi could respond, a deep voice came from the doorway. You don't have to run. They turned to see Lorenzo standing there, wearing a wool coat dusted with snow. His expression was calm but serious. The SUV you saw, he said, it was mine. I was checking the property after getting a call from Gus. Someone tried to access your trust files again. Naomi sighed with relief. You scared the hell out of us. Lorenzo stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I'm sorry, I didn't want to call in case your phone was compromised. Lily looked up sharply. Compromised? Lorenzo pulled out a slim laptop from his briefcase and opened it on the kitchen table. Your baby monitor was broadcasting through an external IP. Someone planted a signal transmitter inside it. Lily felt sick. So someone was watching my babies? Yes, Lorenzo said quietly, but they didn't just want to scare you. They wanted to collect proof, evidence they could use to frame you as paranoid or unstable. It's psychological warfare. Naomi clenched her jaw. Dante's team again. Most likely, Lorenzo said, but we fight smarter. I've got a contact, former FBI cybersecurity specialist. He can trace the source of this signal. Until then, you're under my security coverage. Lily blinked. I can't let you do that. You've already done so much. You're not asking, Lorenzo said firmly. I'm doing it because I won't watch another good person get destroyed by men like him. The words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the sea roared, waves crashing like distant thunder. Later that day, Lorenzo's contact arrived. A wiry man named Nick, quiet and efficient, moved through the house with electronic equipment, scanning every device. The signal came from a satellite router hidden under the nursery floor. Nick said, holding up a small black device. This is sophisticated tech, corporate-grade surveillance, not something you buy online. Lily sat down hard. Corporate as in someone with serious money, Nick confirmed. And connections. Naomi muttered, Dante Caruso money. Lorenzo exhaled slowly. We'll file a report, but first, we cut them off completely. That night, Lorenzo installed a new encrypted network throughout the cottage. Lily watched him work by the flickering fireplace, his movements precise and deliberate. There was something calming about his presence. His quiet confidence, his steady hands, his ability to make her feel safe without saying much at all. Why are you really helping me? She asked finally. He looked up from the router, the glow from the fire softening his features. Because I've been where you are. I lost everything once. My wife, my peace, someone lied, and the world believed it. No one deserves to drown alone. She swallowed hard. Thank you. He smiled slightly. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. The sound of the wind filled the space between them. One of the babies stirred, a soft coo breaking the silence. For the first time in months, Lily felt something she hadn't dared to feel. Trust. Hours later, long after Lorenzo left, Lily stood at the window holding Noah. The stars above the Hamptons glimmered faintly, scattered across the black sky like distant promises. Then, across the dunes, she saw it again. A small light, blinking twice in the darkness, like a coded signal. Her blood ran cold. She whispered into the empty room, Lorenzo, please tell me that's you. But miles away in Manhattan, inside a dim office with leather chairs and dark wood, Dante smiled at his phone screen as a live feed reconnected. Her cottage, visible once again through a newly hidden camera. Phase 4, he murmured to the man beside him. Let's see how strong she really is. By early summer, the Hamptons shimmered under sunlight that turned the ocean into liquid gold. The breeze carried the scent of wild roses and salt, a gentleness that felt almost unreal after the darkness of the past months. But Lily Hartman no longer trusted calm. She had learned that peace was often just the pause before the next storm. She had spent weeks rebuilding. Not just her life, but her defenses. Firewalls around her devices, legal walls around her children, emotional walls around her heart. The fear hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something sharper. Resolve. That morning, Lorenzo arrived at the cottage with a navy folder tucked under his arm and a faint smile. You've got your clearance, he said, placing the folder on the wooden kitchen table. The trust board approved your provisional management rights for Hartman Holdings. It's time to take your name back. Lily looked up from feeding Ava, her eyes widening. You mean I can actually run part of the company? He nodded. All of it yet, but you'll oversee community projects and public relations. It'll prove your stability to the board and show the world you're capable. Naomi, joining via video call from her laptop, clapped her hands. This is your comeback, babe. Let's make it count. Lily smiled for the first time in days. Where do I start? We'll set up office space downtown, Lorenzo said. My firm can loan you staff until you recruit your own. The key is visibility. Show up, be composed, be professional. Let Dante underestimate you while you build something real. 3 days later, Lily walked through the revolving doors of a Manhattan skyscraper. She wore a cream suit and low heels, her hair pulled back in a simple knot. The marble lobby gleamed with light, reflecting her image back at her. Confident, steady, a woman reclaiming her place. She took the elevator to the 32nd floor, her heart racing as the doors opened to reveal a glass-walled office with sweeping views of the city. A young assistant, professional and warm, handed her a Mont Blanc pen. Miss Hartman, the contracts for the Midtown renovation project are ready for your signature. Miss Hartman. The name felt powerful again. She signed, her hand steady and sure. By noon, Lorenzo dropped by to check on her progress. How does it feel? She smiled faintly, like breathing after being underwater too long. They spent the afternoon reviewing proposals, their heads bent over spreadsheets glowing on MacBook screens. Outside, the skyline stretched endless and brilliant, the city humming with life. But just as Lily began to believe things were finally turning around, Naomi's call came through. Her voice was tight, urgent. We've got a problem. Dante filed for joint custody, and he's petitioned the court to evaluate your mental fitness. Lily's pulse spiked. He's insane. Maybe, Naomi said, but he's also strategic. He's claiming you're delusional, that you staged the surveillance to gain sympathy. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. Then we hit back, not with emotion, with facts. That night, Lily stood at her office window as Manhattan glittered below like 1,000 broken promises. She remembered Dante's words from the divorce hearing. No one will believe you. Now she had to prove him wrong. She began drafting her own press statement. Not defensive, not emotional, just truth. A mother reclaiming her name. She attached photos of her charity relaunch plans, evidence of her work, her medical reports clearing her health, documentation of her stability. Naomi reviewed the draft that evening and said softly, "This isn't just damage control. It's redemption." Hours later, the post went live on Hartman Holdings' verified account. Within minutes, it trended. Thousands of comments poured in, women cheering, sharing stories of their own resilience, mothers who saw themselves in her struggle. Lily sat back in her chair, heart pounding. For the first time, Dante wasn't controlling the narrative. But at 2 in the morning, a notification pinged on her phone. A new email. Subject line, "You can't outsmart me, Lily." Attached was a single photo, grainy security footage of her holding Lorenzo's hand at the office earlier that week. Her throat tightened. Beneath the image, one line glared back at her. "See you in court, sweetheart." And as she stared at the screen, the city lights outside flickered like a warning. Her climb had just entered dangerous heights. By mid-July, Manhattan's heat felt suffocating, the kind of thick, oppressive air that made every breath feel heavy, and every tabloid headline seemed to scream her name. Lily Hartman, unstable mother, billionaire's new flame, Lorenzo Vitale, charity or cover-up. Dante had done him art dead. He had poisoned public opinion with polished lies and paid gossip columnists. Every carefully constructed step Lily had taken towards stability was now being questioned, dissected, weaponized. Inside her office, Lily stood frozen before a wall of glowing screens. Lorenzo's PR director, a composed woman named Marissa, clicked through slides showing headlines, social media trends, carefully crafted hit pieces. "He's framing you as emotionally erratic," Marissa said, "claiming you're spending the trust funds on luxury and leaking photos of you and Lorenzo to suggest impropriety." Lily's voice trembled. "But I haven't done any of that." "Doesn't matter," Marissa said bluntly. "People don't believe facts. They believe stories, especially tragic ones with villains they can hate. Right now, you're his villain. Naomi stormed in, waving a folder. I got the custody evaluation order. The judge wants a full psychological review. Dante's pushing for supervised visitation only. Lorenzo stood in the corner, silent, his jaw tight. Finally, he spoke. Then we show them who Lily Hartman really is. He turned to Marissa. Set up a media interview, live, national network. No tabloids, no gossip shows, real journalism. Lily blinked. You want me to go on television? Yes, Lorenzo said firmly. Tell your story, not through lawyers or statements, through your own voice. You've been hiding, letting him define you. It's time to take back the narrative. The idea terrified her, but the next day she found herself under studio lights, heart racing, while makeup artists dabbed powder across her trembling hands. The producer whispered, "We go live in 60 seconds." Across from her sat the host of The Morning View, a show watched by millions. The host smiled sympathetically. Lily, thank you for being brave enough to come here today. America has heard a lot of the stories about you, some cruel, some unbelievable. What's the truth? Lily took a breath. The cameras felt like 1,000 eyes, but she forced herself to look directly into the lens. The truth is, I'm not perfect. I cried when I signed those divorce papers. I broke when I thought I'd lose my babies. But weakness isn't insanity, it's humanity. The host leaned forward. And what about your relationship with Lorenzo Vitale? Lily met the camera head on. He saved my life, literally. But he's not my story. My story is survival. My story is 3 babies born too soon who taught me what real strength is. The studio went silent. Even the crew paused. Lily continued, her voice steady now. If people want to call me unstable because I refuse to let my ex-husband destroy me, so be it. But the only label that matters to me is mother. Applause erupted in the studio, spreading like wildfire. The segment aired that evening and exploded online within hours. Justice for Lily trended. Influencers, mothers, journalists rallied to her side. Back in her office that night, Naomi burst through the door, breathless. You did it. The tide's turning. Even the judge's office is reconsidering the custody review. Lily smiled faintly, tears brimming. Maybe truth still matters. But just as hope bloomed, Marissa rushed in, her face pale. We have a problem. She set down a tablet displaying leaked documents stamped confidential. These just went public. Large fund transfers from Hartman Holdings to Lorenzo Vitale's firm, dated last month. Lily's heart dropped. Those were for the foundation's security upgrades. I know, Lorenzo said grimly, stepping into the office. But out of context, it looks like fraud. Naomi cursed under her breath. He's framing you again. Lily stared at the glowing screen, watching her progress crumble under one more lie. And somewhere across Manhattan, inside a penthouse filled with expensive furniture and empty bottles, Dante raised a glass of scotch. He watched her live interview replay on his phone, a cold smile spreading across his face. Nice speech, sweetheart, he muttered. Let's see how much the world loves you tomorrow. Autumn swept through Manhattan with sharp winds and gold leaves swirling down Fifth Avenue like nature's confetti. The city had transformed again, shedding summer's heat for something colder, more unforgiving. After months of chaos, Lily Hartman received an invitation that felt like both a trap and an opportunity. The annual Children of Tomorrow charity gala, black tie, Manhattan's elite. And this year, Dante Caruso and his polished mistress, Julia, were co-chairing. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Naomi slammed the invitation on Lily's desk. This is bait. I know, Lily said calmly, turning the embossed card over in her hands. You understand what you are walking into, Lorenzo said, standing by the window overlooking the city. He'll try to humiliate you in public. Lily looked up, her eyes no longer soft but steady, hardened by months of survival. Then I'll let him try. That evening, the Plaza Hotel glowed like liquid gold beneath crystal chandeliers. Paparazzi lined the red carpet, their cameras flashing like lightning. Guests in Dior and Versace swept past, their laughter and champagne clinking, filling the air with false brightness. And then, a hush. Lily arrived. She wore a simple off-white gown, elegant in its simplicity. No diamonds, no glitter, just grace. Her hair was pulled back in a low chignon, her makeup subtle, but her presence was radiant, commanding attention not through extravagance but through quiet strength. Every lens turned toward her. "Miss Hartman, is it true you stole funds?" one reporter shouted. Lily smiled gently. The truth has already survived worse lies. Inside the ballroom, a sea of champagne glasses and whispers awaited. Cole stood near the main stage, his tuxedo crisp, Julia clinging to his arm like an expensive accessory. When he saw Lily, his smirk faltered for just a split second. "Well, he said as she approached, his voice dripping with false surprise. "Didn't expect you had shown your face here." She met his gaze coolly. "You underestimate me. Still." Julia chimed in, her voice sweet and venomous. "Careful, Dante. She might live stream this and cry again." Lily smiled faintly. "Oh, Julia, don't worry. I'm saving my tears for people with souls." Lorenzo appeared beside her then, offering his arm. The room's energy shifted instantly. Photographers snapped like wildfire. "Shall we?" Lorenzo asked. Dante's jaw tightened. "You think parading with another man makes you innocent?" Lorenzo's tone was calm but razor-edged. "No, but it makes her untouchable." The band began to play. As Lily stepped onto the dance floor with Lorenzo, the crowd parted like water. Cameras captured her every move. Elegance wrapped in defiance. Halfway through the evening, the host took the microphone. "Tonight, we honor those rebuilding hope for children in need. Miss Lily Hartman, would you do us the honor of presenting the keynote address?" Dante's smirk returned. "This should be entertaining." Lily walked to the podium under a spotlight. The ballroom fell silent. "When I first started rebuilding the Hartman Foundation," she began, her voice steady, "people said I wasn't fit, too emotional, too broken. But maybe broken people need better than anyone." She paused, letting the words settle. "Tonight, I'm not here to prove my worth. I'm here to honor those who never gave up, even when the world called them unworthy." Applause rippled through the room, growing louder. Dante's expression hardened. Then, as if timed by fate, Naomi appeared near the back of the room, phone in hand, whispering urgently to Lorenzo. Lorenzo scanned his phone and froze. He leaned toward Lily as she stepped down from the podium. "We've got him," he whispered. "What?" Lily breathed. "The wire transfers Dante used to frame you? They traced back to his own offshore account. He sent them himself." Her eyes widened. "You're sure?" Naomi nodded from across the room, holding up her phone. "Positive. We have digital proof." Lily straightened, her heart pounding. The night had just turned. Dante, oblivious, raised his glass toward her mockingly. "To second chances," she smiled coldly, "to final ones." And as the cameras flashed around her, Lily knew this wasn't just a gala, it was her battlefield. And tomorrow, the same headlines that had crucified her would bury him instead. The gala should have ended in triumph. Lily's speech had moved donors to tears, and Lorenzo's whispered revelation, "We've got him," echoed like a promise of justice finally delivered. But fate, cruel and theatrical, wasn't done testing her resolve. As dinner service began, Dante took the stage uninvited. His tuxedo gleamed under the chandeliers, confidence dripping from every movement. He picked up the microphone with casual arrogance. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. "Before we celebrate the evening, I'd like to address a small misunderstanding about the woman we've all just applauded." The crowd stilled. Every fork lowered. Every conversation stopped. Lily froze mid-step, her hand tightening around her champagne flute. Dante smiled like a man who believed he had already won. "Many of you have read the articles, seen the so-called evidence. Large sums missing from her mother's foundation, funneled directly into Mr. Vitale's company." He gestured toward Lorenzo with mock respect. "Quite the modern love story, isn't it? Tragic, scandalous, and profitable." A ripple of murmurs ran through the ballroom. Cameras flashed. Julia watched from their table, her expression smug, swirling her champagne like she was watching a play unfold exactly as scripted. Lily felt the air vanish from her lungs. The room tilted slightly, the amber lights swimming in her vision. Lorenzo rose instantly, his voice cutting through the noise. "Sit down, Caruso. You've said enough." Dante smirked. "Don't play the hero, Vitale. We both know this woman's been manipulating you since day one. He turned back to the crowd, his voice rising. Look at her. Perfect lighting, perfect tears, a performance born for sympathy. The audience watched, captivated by cruelty masked as truth. Lily stepped forward then. Her voice was soft at first, but it carried across the ballroom with unexpected strength. You're right, Dante. The room went silent. I did cry, she continued, her voice growing steadier. I cried when you called our unborn children a mistake. I cried when you froze my accounts and left me with nothing. She lifted her chin, her eyes meeting his across the room. But tonight I'm done crying for you. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. Dante opened his mouth to respond, but she continued louder now. You talk about love stories. Here's the truth. You didn't lose me because I was weak. You lost me because I finally saw what real strength looks like. The room erupted in applause. Even some of Dante's associates turned away, uncomfortable. But Dante wasn't finished. His expression darkened, the mask slipping. Touching speech, Lily, he said, his voice dripping with venom. Almost makes people forget your mother's trust-funded that cottage you're hiding in. Lorenzo stepped closer, his fist clenched, but Lily touched his arm gently. No, she said quietly, he doesn't get to pull me into the mud. She turned toward Dante, her voice calm but cutting. You keep using my pain as entertainment, Dante. But the difference between you and me? I heal. You perform. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the ballroom. The chandeliers sparkled above like distant stars, indifferent to the drama below. Then the host, sweating nervously, took back the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Caruso. We'll return to our scheduled program. Dante's smirk faltered. The applause that followed wasn't for him. It was for her. Naomi rushed over, phone in hand, whispering urgently. Lily, the data. Gus and I traced everything. It's done. Tomorrow morning, the press gets all of it. Lily exhaled shakily. Then tonight, he can have his moment. As she left the ballroom, flashbulbs followed her, but this time the voices weren't mocking. They were different, almost reverent. Miss Hartman, how do you stay so composed? Do you forgive him? What's next for the Hartman Foundation? Outside, cold air bit at her cheeks. Ethan caught up to her on the steps of the plaza, his expression filled with quiet pride. You handled him like a queen, he said. She smiled faintly. No, like a woman who's finally done bleeding. But upstairs in a private suite, as Dante poured another drink, his phone buzzed with an encrypted message. His hand froze mid-pour. The files are compromised. She has everything. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor like the empire he thought would never fall. The morning after the ballroom, Manhattan buzzed with a different energy. Every news outlet replayed the confrontation. Every talk show analyzed Lily's composure. Every social media platform erupted with support. But while the world speculated, Lily and Naomi were already 2 steps ahead, buried in evidence inside Naomi's law office. Stacks of printed emails, wire transfers, and internal memos covered the oak table. The hum of the city outside was a distant backdrop to the work happening inside these walls. Lorenzo sat across from them, sleeves rolled up, scrolling through a laptop screen filled with damning digital documents. He built a maze of shell companies, Naomi muttered. Cayman Islands, Zurich, Singapore. Every cent of the so-called missing trust funds went straight to Caruso Enterprises under false names. Lorenzo leaned in, pointing at the screen. He knew how to hide it, but not perfectly. Look here. Same signature on multiple documents. Different date stamps. He forgot to change the metadata. Lily rubbed her temples. So we have proof he fabricated everything. Not just that, Naomi said, sliding a folder toward her. We have enough to show he embezzled from his own company and used the Hartman Foundation as cover. He tried to frame you for his own crimes. Lily stared at the files, her heart racing. We can finally end this. Naomi hesitated. Maybe, but we need one more piece. A witness from inside Caruso Enterprises. Someone who can verify this paper trail in court. Otherwise, his lawyers will bury us in technicalities. Lorenzo nodded grimly. Someone on the inside who's willing to talk. The office door creaked open then. A timid voice said, Maybe I can help. They turned. A young woman stood in the doorway, red-eyed and trembling, clutching a flash drive. She looked barely 25, dressed in a simple blouse and jeans, her hands shaking. "Who are you?" Naomi asked carefully. "My name's Amber," the woman said, her voice cracking. "I was Dante's executive assistant. I can't keep lying for him anymore." Lily rose slowly. "You worked for him when all this happened?" Amber nodded, tears spilling over. "Since before the divorce. I know everything. The offshore transfers, the fake receipts, the private investigators he hired to follow you." She took a shaky breath. "He said he wanted proof of instability. I thought it was just business or strategy. I didn't know he'd try to hurt you." Lorenzo handed her a bottle of water. "You're doing the right thing now." Amber plugged the flash drive into Naomi's laptop with trembling hands. The screen filled with scanned receipts, emails, and recorded phone calls. One file name made Lily's stomach twist. AMB 204 Wave. Naomi clicked it. Dante's voice spilled through the speakers. Cold, deliberate, unmistakable. "Make sure she looks hysterical in public. Leak the hospital records, the crying photos. I want a narrative. The unstable ex-wife. Once the custody ruling's mine, she can disappear quietly." The room fell silent. Lily pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes glistening, but her voice stayed firm. "That's enough," Naomi whispered. "This will bury him." Lorenzo exhaled, half relief, half fury. "We submit everything to the court and the press simultaneously. No more waiting." But before Naomi could respond, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. A distorted male voice came through. "You think those files will save her? Check your office window." Naomi froze. Lorenzo turned sharply toward the glass. Across the street, on a rooftop, a man in a dark jacket stood with a camera lens glinting under the morning sun, watching them. Lorenzo yanked the blind shut. "He knows we have the files." Naomi grabbed her bag. "We need to move. Now. The original evidence stays with me. You two go separate routes." Lily's pulse hammered as Lorenzo took her arm and led her down the back stairwell. Outside, horns blared. The city pulsed with adrenaline and chaos. Lorenzo's car waited at the curb, engine running. As they sped through traffic, he said quietly, "Once this goes public, there's no going back." Lily looked out the window, her reflection merging with the skyline. "Good, I'm not going back." But as they disappeared into the chaos of Manhattan, a black SUV followed at a steady distance. And inside it, Dante watched their every turn, his jaw clenched, his voice a low murmur. "Let them run. The next move is mine." Rain hammered the glass walls of the downtown courthouse as if nature itself demanded justice. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows, cameras discreetly positioned despite the no photography rule. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that precedes either vindication or devastation. Lily Hartman sat at the plaintiff's table beside Naomi, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back, no jewelry except her mother's silver pendant. Across the aisle, Dante Caruso sat in a tailored charcoal suit, his expression calm and confident. Julia sat behind him, her face perfectly composed. The judge entered, a stern woman in her 60s known for her zero tolerance for theatrics. "Case number 18-3462, the bailiff announced. "Caruso versus Hartman, custody hearing and fraud counterclaim." Dante's attorney rose first. Slick, rehearsed, expensive. "Your Honor, my client seeks sole custody on the grounds that Miss Hartman exhibits psychological instability and financial misconduct, both proven by her erratic behavior in the leaked transfers from her trust." Lily clenched in her jaw but stayed silent. Naomi had coached her. "Don't react. Wait for our turn." Then it was Naomi's move. She stood, her voice steady and confident. "Your Honor, we have evidence showing those very transfers originated from Mr. Caruso himself, designed specifically to frame my client. We also have recorded confessions from his assistant and forensic proof of data tampering." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Dante's composure flickered. The judge frowned. "You have this evidence ready to present?" Naomi nodded. Yes, Your Honor, including live testimony from Miss Amber Lewis, former executive assistant to Mr. Caruso. Dante's attorney scoffed. The same assistant who's under investigation for data theft? Convenient witness. Naomi smiled thinly. Perhaps, but we also have federal subpoenas validating her files and her physical presence here today. The judge nodded. Proceed. Amber, pale but determined, took the stand. Her voice trembled only once at the beginning. Mr. Caruso ordered me to falsify records, she said, to leak personal photos of Miss Hartman to the press. He also paid private contractors to interfere with her medical and financial records. Dante jumped to his feet. Lies. She's being paid to say this. Sit down, Mr. Caruso, the judge warned sharply. Amber continued, her voice growing firmer. He told me, and I quote, she's too fragile to survive another scandal. One more push and she'll collapse. Gasps filled the courtroom. Lily blinked back tears but stayed composed. Naomi handed the judge a USB drive. For the record, Your Honor, this contains the original recordings. The judge inserted the drive into her laptop. Press play. Dante's voice echoed through the speakers, cold and calculating. Make her look unfit. I'll handle the rest. The courtroom went silent. Every camera, every eye turned toward Dante. He froze. Julia's face drained of color. Lorenzo leaned toward Lily from the gallery. This is it. He's finished. But Dante wasn't the kind to surrender quietly. He stood, his voice rising. That recording is out of context. It's been edited. The judge slammed her gavel. Enough, Mr. Caruso. She turned toward Lily, her expression softening slightly. Miss Hartman, your composure throughout this proceeding speaks volumes. The court temporarily grants you full custody pending further investigation into Mr. Caruso's conduct. Tears filled Lily's eyes, but she held them in. Naomi squeezed her shoulder. As they left the courtroom, flashbulbs erupted. Reporters shouted questions, but Lily didn't stop. She looked at Lorenzo, who was waiting outside, and whispered, It's finally over. Lorenzo shook his head softly. Not yet. People like him don't lose quietly. At that moment, Naomi's phone buzzed. Her smile vanished. It's Amber. She didn't make it to the safe house after court. Her GPS stopped 2 blocks from here. Lily's blood ran cold. What do you mean stopped? Naomi swallowed hard, her voice tight. Stopped completely. And across town, beneath a bridge where rain tapped against metal, a black sedan idled. Inside, Amber's phone glowed faintly on the passenger seat. The last sound it had recorded was a man's voice, calm and final. Orders complete. Part 6, the piece. Rain hadn't stopped since the verdict. It fell in slow, relentless sheets over Manhattan, as if the city itself was mourning. For Lily Hartman, it wasn't victory that filled her chest now. It was sorrow. Amber Lewis, the one woman brave enough to speak the truth, had been found dead in what police officially called a car accident. The brake malfunction, no witnesses, no clear evidence of foul play. Everyone knew it wasn't an accident, but proving it was another story. Lily stood at the window of her Upper West Side townhouse, holding Noah in her arms while the twins slept nearby. Naomi's voice came through the phone on speaker, sharp with fury. The NYPD's calling it mechanical failure. No witnesses, no camera angles, just another statistic. Lily whispered, He's silencing anyone who helps me. Lorenzo's voice came through next, calm but edged with steel. Then we stop playing defense. We don't just prove he's guilty. We dismantle his entire operation. Lily turned, her reflection hardening in the glass. How? By building yours, Lorenzo said. 2 weeks later, the Hartman Foundation for Single Mothers launched quietly in a midtown office. No red carpet, no champagne, just purpose. Lily stood at a simple podium, wearing a tailored black dress. The room was small, filled with journalists, donors, and women whose stories mirrored her own. Today, she said, her voice steady, we're creating something that can't be bought or broken. Dignity, opportunity, safety for women who've been silenced. The small crowd erupted in applause. Not tabloid cameras this time, real journalists, the kind who reported courage, not scandal. After the event, a reporter approached. Miss Hartman, your ex-husband declined to comment on the ongoing investigation. Do you have anything to say to him? Lily smiled faintly. Yes, thank you for teaching me how much strength silence can hide. The next day, headlines shifted. Lily Hartman turns pain into power, from victim to visionary. Dante's PR empire began to crack. Investors pulled out of Caruso Enterprises. Clients canceled contracts. Julia was photographed leaving his penthouse with suitcases, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses. But Dante didn't crumble quietly. That evening, he appeared live on a business network, his voice measured, his mask flawless. This is a witch hunt, he said calmly. My ex-wife is manipulating tragedy for fame. I pity her. Lorenzo watched from his office, his jaw tightening. He's using sympathy as a weapon again. Lily, sitting nearby, didn't flinch. Then let's use truth as ours. She opened a folder marked Project Reclamation. Inside were documents showing properties Dante had fraudulently tied to his company. Each asset was being reclaimed under the Hartman name. Each recovery was another nail in his coffin. Within a month, the foundation's impact spread across the city. Billboards read, "Dignity is not negotiable. Hartman Foundation." Donations poured in from women who saw themselves in her story. Even the district attorney took notice, reopening Dante's financial fraud case under mounting public pressure. Still, late at night, when the lights dimmed and the babies slept, Lily felt the ache of Amber's absence. She would light a candle by the window and whisper into the darkness, "You didn't die for nothing." One evening, Lorenzo stopped by with takeout and news. The DA is freezing his accounts. They're raiding Caruso Enterprises tomorrow. Lily met his eyes. Tomorrow? Yes, you'll need to stay out of sight. Once he realizes you're behind this, he might try something desperate. Lily nodded slowly. Let him try. I've lived through desperate before. She turned back to the window. Manhattan glowed beneath the rain, lights twinkling like promises kept and broken. Her reflection layered over the skyline. For the first time, her life wasn't defined by fear. It was defined by purpose. But somewhere in the shadows of the city, inside a penthouse growing darker by the day, Dante watched the breaking news with a glass of whiskey and a plan forming in his mind. If she wants to destroy my name, he muttered, I'll burn hers with mine. For the first time in years, Lily Hartman woke up without the weight of fear pressing against her chest. Morning sun spilled across her kitchen like liquid gold. The smell of coffee, the sound of giggles from the nursery. Life felt real again. Lorenzo was sitting at her breakfast bar, sleeves rolled up, feeding Jack mashed bananas while Ava and Noah played on the floor with soft blocks. You're getting good at that, Lily said, smiling as she poured coffee into 2 mugs. He chuckled. I'm a fast learner. Besides, they like me better than you right now. She laughed, a sound that had become rarer but brighter. Only because you don't make them eat vegetables. It was ordinary, simple, beautiful, the kind of peace that once felt impossible. Outside, New York was still wild and ruthless, but inside this small townhouse, everything slowed down. Lorenzo looked up. The foundation's numbers came in this morning. You hit your first million in donations. Lily blinked at me. Already? Already, he said, grinning. Looks like the world believes in you, Miss Hartman. She shook her head, emotion tightening her throat. They don't believe in me. They believe in survival. You are survival, Lorenzo said quietly. For a moment, their eyes held. 2 souls forged by loss, now finding something fragile and hopeful in each other. Lily looked away, her heart fluttering. You should eat before it gets cold. He smiled but didn't move. You still don't see it, do you? See what? She asked softly. That you've already won. You're not just surviving anymore. You're living. His words settled over her like warmth. But before she could respond, Naomi burst through the door, phone in hand, breathless. The DA raided Caruso Enterprises. It's on every channel. Lily's pulse spiked. Already? Naomi nodded, pulling up footage on her phone. Federal agents swarming through Dante's office building. Boxes of documents being carried out. Dante himself being escorted by his lawyer, his face a mask of controlled rage. They found everything, Naomi said. Offshore accounts, fraudulent shell companies. Proof he bribed auditors. His empire is crumbling. Lorenzo exhaled, relief mixing with caution. He'll lash out before he falls. Stay inside today. Security's doubling shifts. Lily nodded, pulling Naomi into a hug. Thank you for everything. Naomi smirked. Don't thank me yet. I like my victories with champagne. As Naomi left, the townhouse fell quiet again. Lily sat beside Lorenzo, watching sunlight dance across his face. When this is finally over, she said quietly, what happens then? He looked at her for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers. Then you get to choose a life, not one built from fear or survival, but peace, whatever that means for you. Her chest tightened. And you? I'll still be here, he said softly, if you want me to be. Silence filled the space between them, heavy and tender. Then a cry from the nursery broke the moment. Lily stood, smiling through her tears. Looks like someone's awake. She disappeared into the nursery, lifting Noah into her arms. The baby giggled, tugging at her hair. You're safe now, she whispered. All of us are. That evening they had dinner together. Lorenzo, Lily, and the triplets. No business talk, no court filings, no ghosts, just laughter, pasta, and candlelight. Lorenzo told stories about his late wife, about grief, about how healing doesn't erase pain, but transforms it into something you can carry. Lily listened, feeling something shift inside her, a fragile, glowing piece of hope she hadn't dared to hold before. As the night deepened, she found herself standing on the balcony, looking at the city lights. Lorenzo joined her quietly, offering a glass of wine. To what? She asked, clinking her glass against his. To second chances, he said. She smiled, eyes glistening, and to finally feeling safe. For a moment, there was nothing but the hum of Manhattan below and the quiet heartbeat of something new between them. But far across the city, inside a penthouse filled with empty bottles and shattered pride, Dante watched their photo on a gossip site. His hands trembled with rage. Enjoy your peace, Lily, he whispered into the darkness, because it doesn't last forever. By late autumn, the air in Manhattan carried a chill that made the city feel sharper, cleaner, like truth finally cutting through years of lies. News of Dante Caruso's downfall dominated every headline. Caruso Enterprises under federal investigation. Ex-CEO, accused of fraud, embezzlement, and witness tampering. Lily stood on her balcony that morning, coffee in hand, wrapped in Lorenzo's oversized sweater. She watched helicopters hover above downtown where federal agents were raiding Dante's offices. For the first time, the city didn't scare her. Lorenzo stepped beside her, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, Gus, keep the Hartman Foundation completely separate from the fallout. We don't want any crossover in the headlines. He ended the call and turned to her. It's official. The SEC froze all his assets. His empire's done. Lily exhaled, her breath misting in the cold air. He built everything on lies. It was only a matter of time. Lorenzo nodded. Time and you. That same morning, Dante arrived at his office to find chaos. Agents swarmed through the marble lobby, seizing computers and files. His receptionist wouldn't meet his eyes. Cameras flashed from the street as reporters shouted questions. Mr. Caruso, are you aware of the federal indictment? Did you embezzle from your own shareholders? Dante forced a smile, slipping into his Mercedes with practiced calm. The arrogance of a man who refused to believe he'd lost control. But when his driver didn't move, Dante snapped. Drive. The driver turned. It was Mason, his former head of security. We need to talk, Mason said quietly. Dante's eyes narrowed. About what? The deal's off, Mason said flatly. You promised me protection, not a prison sentence. The feds came to my apartment last night. Dante's temper flared. You think you're innocent. You followed orders. My orders. That makes you guilty too. Mason stared straight ahead. I recorded everything. If I go down, you go down first. Dante lunged for him, but Mason shoved him back against the seat. You should have paid me what you owed, boss. He opened the door and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Dante fuming and alone. Back at the townhouse, Lily received the call from Naomi. It's happening. Dante's facing 37 charges. They're freezing his accounts worldwide. He'll lose everything. Lily sat quietly, her children playing on the carpet nearby. Everything but his conscience, she murmured. assuming he still has one. Naomi said dryly, "I'll see you at the press conference tomorrow. The DA wants you there." That night, Dante stumbled into his penthouse. Dark, empty, silent. Julia was gone, his empire crumbling. His phone rang. The caller ID read, "Lorenzo Vitale." He hesitated, then answered. Lorenzo's voice was calm, almost pitying. "You should turn yourself in, Dante. It's over." Dante laughed bitterly. "You always wanted her. Don't pretend this was about justice, Bog. This was never about her," Lorenzo said quietly. "It was about who you chose to become." Dante's eyes burned with rage. "You think you've won? She'll never be clean again. The world forgets fast. And when they're bored of her redemption story, she'll be the villain again. You'll see." The line went dead. Dante hurled his phone across the room. An hour later, the lights of his penthouse flickered as he poured one final drink. The city stretched before him, glittering and indifferent. He walked to the balcony, wind slicing across his face. Cameras below caught the image. The fallen man staring at the skyline that once worshipped him. Meanwhile, at Lily's townhouse, Lorenzo turned on the TV. The breaking news banner flashed. Dante Caruso resigns as CEO amid scandal, facing criminal charges. Lily closed her eyes, whispering, "Justice doesn't need vengeance. It just needs truth." She turned toward her children, asleep in their cribs, and tucked the blankets around them. But across town, as Dante stepped back from the balcony railing, his last words drifted into the night. "If I'm going down, I'm taking her story with me." And somewhere deep in the shadows, a spark of danger still flickered. The morning of the final press conference, Manhattan pulsed with energy. Reporters gathered outside the federal courthouse. Cameras trained on the podium, flanked by American flags. Headlines had already declared the storm. Dante Caruso indicted on 37 counts. But what everyone waited for was Lily Hartman, the woman who had brought an empire to its knees simply by refusing to break. Inside the courthouse lobby, Lily adjusted her black blazer, her hands trembling slightly. Lorenzo placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't owe them a show," he said quietly. "You just owe them the truth." Naomi, flipping through legal notes, added, "And remember, this isn't just about Dante. It's about every woman who's been silenced." Lily met her reflection in the glass door. Not the frightened wife from months ago, a survivor, a mother, a name reclaimed. "Then let's finish this," she said. The doors opened. Flashes exploded. The crowd surged forward. Lily stepped to the podium, Lorenzo and Naomi standing behind her. The murmurs died as she faced the sea of lenses. "Good morning," and she began, her voice steady. "For over a year, my life has been torn apart by lies. Not just personal lies, but corporate fraud designed to destroy me while enriching the man who swore to protect me." She held up a folder marked Hartman Foundation Records. "Every cent in my mother's trust has been accounted for. Every accusation against me was fabricated by Dante Caruso, who used fear as a tool and money as a weapon." A reporter shouted, "Miss Hartman, do you have proof?" "Yes," she said, her voice unwavering. "You'll find every document uploaded publicly as of this morning. Transparency isn't optional for me anymore. It's survival." The crowd buzzed. Naomi nodded approvingly. Lorenzo watched her with quiet pride. Lily continued, "But this isn't just my story. It's about anyone who's been told they're too emotional, too fragile, too small to fight back. Dignity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence." The applause that followed was thunderous. Moments later, the district attorney stepped forward to confirm the charges officially. Dante had been formally indicted and would face trial within the month. But just as Lily started to step away, chaos erupted. A man in a dark coat broke through the barricade, yelling her name. Security moved instantly, tackling him to the ground. Reporters screamed, cameras flashed frantically. Lily froze, heart pounding. Naomi shielded her. Lorenzo grabbed her arm, pulling her back toward the courthouse steps. "Who was that?" Lily gasped. A security officer radioed in. "We've got him. ID says Mason Carter, former private security for Caruso Enterprises." Lily's blood ran cold. Mason. Lorenzo's expression darkened. Dante's enforcer. Inside the police van, Mason struggled against cuffs, shouting through the window, "He's not done. The story's not over." Lily stared as the van doors slammed shut, sirens wailing into the distance. The press swarmed again, shouting questions, but Lorenzo guided her inside. Back in the courthouse, Naomi exhaled shakily. That could have gone bad fast. Lily leaned against the marble wall, breath trembling. He's trying to scare me. Even from the shadows, he wants control. Lorenzo looked her straight in the eye. Then take it back, all of it. You've told the truth, now live it. Let him rot with his lies. Later that evening, footage of the conference aired on every major network. The image of Lily standing tall against the chaos became iconic. Truth Has a Face trended within hours. In her townhouse that night, Lily held her children close as they drifted to sleep. For the first time in years, she felt peace. The noise of the city outside sounded like applause. But somewhere in a dim jail cell, Dante smiled faintly at the news broadcast. She thinks it's over, he murmured. But the story ends when I say it does. And under the table, a guard slipped him a phone glowing with one unread message. Phase final, proceed. Epilogue, the new beginning. Winter returned to Manhattan with gentle snow instead of storms. The trial had ended. Dante Caruso was convicted on all counts, his sentence stretching decades. And for the first time in 2 years, the world stopped whispering Lily Hartman's name in pity. They said it now with respect. On a crisp December morning, sunlight spilled across Brooklyn Bridge. Inside a riverside cafe, warm light glowed over white roses and glass chandeliers. The scent of vanilla and cedar filled the air. Guests spoke in hushed tones, waiting for the bride. Naomi adjusted her gown in the dressing room, grinning. You realize the whole country is watching this wedding, right? CNN, Vogue, everyone. Lily laughed softly. I'm not marrying for the headlines. I'm marrying for peace. I can't wait to done. Her reflection in the mirror was calm, hair pinned simply, gown satin and timeless. Around her neck hung her mother's pendant, engraved with courage. This is for her, she whispered. Outside, Lorenzo stood at the altar overlooking the East River. He looked different now, lighter, freer. The gray in his eyes wasn't sorrow anymore. It was home. Beside him, Gus smiled quietly. The man who had once been the gatekeeper to Lily's past, now standing as witness to her future. As the music began, the doors opened. Lily stepped through. The entire room rose. Her steps were steady, deliberate, like she was walking not just toward love, but toward redemption itself. When she reached Lorenzo, he whispered, You look like peace. She smiled, and you look like everything after it. The officiant spoke softly over the sound of the river outside. You've both endured storms most never could. Today you don't promise perfection. You promise presence. Lily squeezed Lorenzo's hand. Presence is all I ever wanted. They exchanged vows written by hand, signed with the same pen that once sealed her divorce papers, a symbol of endings reborn as beginnings. I don't promise to protect you from pain, Lorenzo said, but I promise to stand beside you when it comes. And I don't promise perfect love, Lily replied, only honest love, built from scars, not illusions. When the officiant declared, You may kiss the bride, the crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, but this time Lily didn't flinch. She leaned in and kissed Lorenzo softly, the world blurring around them. Naomi wiped her eyes. Damn it, I swore I wouldn't cry. Gus chuckled. That's what happens when justice turns romantic. Outside, snow began to fall, light, almost cinematic. As they stepped into the courtyard, reporters shouted questions. Miss Hartman, what's next? Lily looked up at the sky, snowflakes catching in her hair. She smiled. Next, life. Finally, just life. Lorenzo wrapped his arm around her as photographers captured the moment. You know, he said quietly, your story is going to be taught someday. Business ethics classes, survival courses. Lily laughed. I hope they skip the crying parts. No, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. That's the part that made everyone believe. Later that evening at the reception, she held her triplets as they danced beneath fairy lights. Ava tugged her veil. Jack tried to grab the microphone. Noah watched everything with quiet wonder. The guests laughed. The music swelled. When the night ended, Lily stood alone for a moment, looking out at the Manhattan skyline reflected on the river. the same skyline that had once watched her crumble. She whispered to herself, I made it home. But as she turned to go back inside, she noticed something. A waiter clearing glasses handed her a folded note. No name, no return address. Inside in block letters, it read, He didn't work alone. Watch the shadows. The paper trembled in her hand as snow kept falling, but Lily straightened, folding the note carefully and slipping it into her pocket. She had survived worse, and whatever came next, she would face it the same way she had faced everything else. With courage, with truth, and with the knowledge that she was finally, undeniably free.